thank you everybody for coming. It's been a pretty long road for us, and this release for us represents a pretty big deal, if you will. It actually does things that we originally conceived of many moons ago back in the days of Metrios. And it also incorporates quite a bit of stuff that we've heard from you guys. And we hope that you'll find it as interesting and neat as I do with my broken clicker. There we go. So what we're going to talk about here is a little bit about, kind of a refresher, what we kind of view our mission as in the Unified Application Environment team, and a little bit of history, where we've been, and kind of point out where we're going. We're going to look at the community. We're going to talk a little bit about you guys and talk a little bit about some of the things that are coming to help us service the community that you'll hear about tomorrow. Finally, we'll go into the 2.5 overview, talk a little bit about 2.5's themes, some of the major features, and then we're going to close it out with proof that I can still program by building two demos, an easy demo and a bit more obscure, kind of more complicated demo, if you will. So real quick, so what's our vision? So for us, it's all about developers. You guys are our customers. People who build phones, people who build other products, they build products for end users. We build products for developers. And we want to enable you guys to build products for your end users, right? And so, our vision is all about enabling you to use unified communications in your applications. We want to take all of the capabilities of the unified communications system, Unified Communications Manager, Meeting Place, WebEx, Unity Connection, Location Appliance, Presence Server, all this great stuff that Cisco builds. We're going to reach down into those products, pull out the interesting bits, and surface them as consistent, easy-to-use APIs to you. It really is that simple. By doing that, we hope to make it easier for you to embed unified communications into your product, or to use unified communications as part of your business, and to build custom applications that enable your business to be more competitive, to be more productive, or to simply service the needs of your internal users. And we hope to make that an enjoyable experience by using the APIs as surface through the unified application. So we've come a pretty long way to this point. And this, when we started the company back in January 2001, we were a little company here in Austin called Metrios. We released several releases of the product. Many of the folks in this room built the original product and continue to build the product today. They're kind of around the walls in the back. There's one right up here in front. So you've got an opportunity here not only to see what's coming, but also to talk to the folks who built this thing, to ask them why it works the way it works, why it does something the way it does. But in June of 2006, Cisco acquired Metrios. We moved into this lovely complex here in Austin. And we spent approximately 2 years releasing relatively minor maintenance, feature, small releases, essentially Ciscoizing the product for no better term. We added some things that maybe weren't so interesting, like we moved to the Cisco hardware, some things that maybe weren't so appealing, like enforced licensing, but we also did some pretty cool stuff. You can install the SDK on any system you like, right? You can just go download it, put it on your laptop, assuming HMP is compatible with your laptop or compatible with your processor or your various motherboards. We also added, in this most recent 2.4.3 release, we bundled several applications from partners, and we added several very important enhancements to speech recognition, right? You no longer have to deploy your grammars. Your grammars are deployed for you. Small incremental improvements, right? Essentially cleaning up several of the rough edges that we knew existed because we were working on something a little bit bigger. So sometime around about September of 2008 this year, and you'll hear more about kind of the process tomorrow when James talks, but some kind of time around September of 2008 this year, we're going to release 2.5.1, and it's got some really cool stuff, quote unquote. We're going to look at a little bit about what that stuff is today in the demos. But before we do that, let's talk real quick about you guys and about the community. When we joined Cisco, there was really no way to build a community. There were no tools. There was no infrastructure. There was nothing. There was NetPro, right? And NetPro is good for a certain type of audience. It wouldn't be Cisco without a phone ringing. It's good for a certain type of audience, a certain type of interaction. Not so good, in my opinion, for a developer interaction. Something where, we all use email every day. I don't want to go visit a web page, etc. So there were no tools. We improvised back in October of 2006. We basically made the Yahoo group, right? Because there was nothing else. So, some of you folks may kind of scratch, why do we use a Yahoo group? We use a Yahoo group because there was nothing else, right? And it serves its purpose, and it does it pretty well, but it is a Yahoo group after all. And up until now, the growth of the community has been fairly organic. You haven't seen a large marketing push by Cisco. It's basically word of mouth, right? It's been pretty steady kind of up and to the right. We've got about 416 members in the Yahoo group in what I would call the community as of April. It's actually, if you look at the numbers so far through May, I think it's up to about 440 or 445. It's fairly consistent, steady growth of between 10 and 15 members a week, right? And that includes attrition. The message growth, similar thing. If you were to plot a regression of that, message growth follows member growth, pretty much the same. That's great. It's good growth. It's small numbers, especially in terms of Cisco. But it's interesting because it proves the point that there's a need to use unified communications. There's a need and a want to access these APIs and access these capabilities. People want to do this. There's people joining the group all the time. I have no idea where they're coming from. And they show up, they ask questions, they start building applications. And that is just cool. But in my opinion, we haven't really even started yet. 2.5, along with adding a bunch of great stuff to the product, is going to add a bunch of great stuff to the community interaction process. We're going to change the way we interact with you guys, and in my opinion, change it for the better. There's going to be new methods, new ways to interact with the community. And you're going to hear a lot about this tomorrow, again, when James talks. But Cisco has been working on solving the problem that we felt 2 years ago. No infrastructure, right? How do I build a community inside Cisco? There's going to be new tools for you guys. You're going to be able to open bugs against us directly. There's going to be a public issue tracker. There's going to be public, and by the way, it's not just going to be a public issue tracker that we ignore. This is going to be a public issue tracker with modern issue tracking software. We're going to use Atlassian and Jira. It's going to be public, 100% transparent. If you open a bug, you will get a response from us, and we will have a dialogue on that bug or that enhancement request about how best to solve it, how best to fix it, how best to resolve it. At some point in time, it may make its way inside to our internal issue tracker, and that will also be tracked on that public bug tracker. So there's going to be new ways for you to talk to us and give us feedback, more than just the mailing list. Today, we're pretty responsive on the mailing list. You guys have a problem. We try to fix it. We try to open a bug against it. We track everything that comes in off of the mailing list as what we call a customer-found defect internally. But there's going to be a more formal way of doing that with the release of 2.5 and the release of this new community. And finally, even more transparency and feedback, right? The site will have a blog where you'll hear directly from the engineering team, directly from the product management team. There's going to be a public wiki, open. You guys can come and contribute to it. We can contribute to it. We view the transparency that we have with you guys as fundamental to our success, as fundamental to how quickly, how effectively we can evolve our product, how quickly and how effectively we can serve the needs that you guys find, because we're certainly not soothsayers. We can't predict the future. We can't predict what you want to do, right? But if you tell us what you want to do, we promise that we're going to listen to it and prioritize it and try to solve that problem as soon as we can. I don't know how many folks in the room, this maybe isn't a great question to ask, have actually gotten a hot fix from us, but we're pretty quick about getting those hot fixes out. If you have something that's stopping you, we're going to prioritize that because we don't like it when you can't build the application that you want to build. So we see this as absolutely critical to our success, and we will continue to go this direction. We will continue to open our kimono, if you will, to show you the innards and how everything works, and we hope that that you guys will find that valuable. So let's talk about 2.5. Internally, we called this release Gut Cruncher. So we name all of our internal releases after transformers. So Gut Cruncher is a transformer for the geeks in the audience. But yes, it's also a pretty apt name. with this release, we basically turned ourselves inside out. Right? We went from being a container to essentially being a service platform while still being a container. So there are 4 major themes. And real quick on these themes. We've always taken this stuff seriously, but we've never internally amongst our team formalized our taking of this stuff seriously. And what I mean by that is when we sat down and we looked at 2.5 and we prioritized what we wanted to do in 2.5, we thought about it in terms of this pyramid. Developer experience. We've all heard about user experience. We've all heard how important it is to look at user interaction and design good UIs. We believe the same is true for developer interaction, for APIs that you use. And we haven't always been great at doing this, right? I don't know if anybody in the room's used Axel Soap as part of the visual designer. It's not exactly an enjoyable experience, right? But that doesn't mean that we don't recognize the problem, right? We absolutely do, and we're absolutely going to solve it. So developer experience for us is very important. When we sit down and we design a new API, and we look at how we want you to use the APIs we're exposing, we actually, as part of 2.5, all of the new APIs we built, before we wrote a line of code, we built developer use cases. We built programs that used the fake API. It wasn't even implemented yet, and we thought about it, and we continued. We spent a lot of time doing that, and we're by no means done. So developer experience is the foundation to this release. Important enough, as part of that, one of the interesting things for everything prior to 2.4 was that you had to use our tools. If you wanted to build an app, you were going to use the visual designer. If you wanted to build a plugin, you were going to build a C# or a .NET application and load it into our product. That was just the way it was. If you don't like it, sorry. Well, as part of 2.5, that's different. You can use your tools. You can use your environment. You can use Eclipse. You can use WebLogic. You can use WebSphere. You can use Visual Studio. You can use whatever you want. And my second demo today is going to prove that to you guys. So we've taken ourselves and turned ourselves inside out. And one of the major reasons we did it was the developer experience. We wanted you to be able to use the tools you were used to using and be able to tools you were already an expert at using. Right? We've become experts at using our own designer. I don't know if you've ever seen Seth give a demo of it. The guy can fly around the thing. He doesn't even use the mouse. But that's because we've been using it for 8 years, almost. Right? In 2.5, the developer experience has changed for several reasons, and the biggest one is that we come to you now. The second thing is everything's an API. Accessibility for us, and this isn't accessibility in terms of what you typically think of when you're designing a user experience. Accessibility for us is, can you get at the stuff you want to get at? Right? Can you get at the stuff that enables you to do what you want to do? And again, everything prior to 2.5, we haven't been great at doing this. Has anybody tried to automate management? You can't do it. Not unless you want to write some SQL and do some really nasty stuff. Right? So for us, when we looked at what we were doing for 2.5, anything that's new in 2.5 that could in any way be usable by you will be API accessible. Absolutely anything. And if it's not, then we missed the boat and we need to fix it. Okay? And you're going to hear a lot about that tomorrow when Rajesh and Al talk about the new management architecture. Okay? Building on top of that is the extensibility aspect. We're a platform. We can manage and build our platform, but we certainly can't foresee everything that you want to do with it. Right? And if we're going to come to you effectively, then we need to give you a way to extend everything. So much of this release, especially around the management architecture, was building the necessary foundation so that anything that we can do, you can do. Anything. So if we build an application and we need to access API X, Y, and Z, that will be a publicly available API. Absolutely. If we need to automate a process as part of our testing process, for example, we have an automated testing infrastructure and we need to automatically deploy applications, you'll be able to do that. Anything we can do, you can do. Everything's an API. It's completely extensible. You should be able to build on top of us, not build around us. And finally, reach. So it's about more than just the Cisco Unified Communications Manager. We've traditionally had very, very, very good integration with the Unified Communications Manager. The first version we ever integrated with was against 3.2.2c back in Metrios, way back when, running on a old rickety IBM X330 box that I bought off of eBay, right? But Cisco Unified Communications and the Cisco platform is more than just Unified Communications Manager. It's about location. It's about presence. It's about messaging. It's about collaboration. All of that stuff should be accessible to you. And this release, we start that progression. So what are the major features, right? So we've got basically 3 major feature groups that I'm going to talk about today. And there's a multitude of major features, right? There's a multitude of features, rather. But these are the 3 groups that we spent 80% of our time on, right? We focused on these 3 things like there was no other. So I said in the developer experience bit just a second ago that you can use your tools. And so basically, what does that mean? You have language independence now. You can use any, quote unquote, language you like, where language is bounded by what I'm going to talk about here in a second. Applications and plugins can run anywhere they want. Your application can run on your laptop. Your application can run inside WebSphere. Your application can run anywhere. It doesn't have to run on our server anymore. It doesn't have to be inside our container anymore. You can use any language or IDE you want. You no longer have to use the Visual Designer. You no longer have to use C#. You can use Java. Or you can use C#, and you'll soon be able to use C, Python, or Ruby as well. And in fact, in the future, this list is going to grow. Right? We want you to use the tools you want to use. We want you to use the tools you're used to using. Right? It's likely within the next 6 months, on this list, maybe not technically a language, but you'll see web accessible APIs via SOAP, XML RPC, or some type of XML over HTTP interface. The important thing about that is behind the scenes, inside our application server, there's one thing doing that job. I'm a big believer that you can't implement the same thing twice because you're going to end up with divergence. You're going to end up with the capability of being able to do something in interface A but not interface B. And we've built technology as part of this release to ensure that that does not happen. Management architecture, our favorite subject. So traditionally, we didn't spend a lot of time on management as Metrios. When we were Metrios, management was the last thing we built. We were a little startup. We were running hard. We've got a PHP web application now. It kind of shows. It's not the best web application in the world. It's pretty limiting. So we've re-implemented the whole thing. This was the one piece of 2.5 that we rebuilt. Everything else you're going to see was not rebuilt. This was the one piece we re-implemented. The old management console is actually still there and will still be accessible as part of 2.5 in case anybody in the audience had to work around our limitations by automating the UI or automating some of the things that it did. It will go away in 2.6, but as part of 2.5, it's still there to allow you guys one major release for migration. But it's been completely re-implemented. It's a Java web app built on top of Tapestry, runs initially inside a Jetty container. It will eventually run inside a multitude of J2EE containers with a redesigned UI. We've heard quite a bit of feedback that the UI that we've built as part of the old management console wasn't the most intuitive. And so we've spent some time on this release cleaning that UI up, cleaning up the most egregious problems and making it such that we can easily evolve the UI going forward. And you're going to see the UI several times over the next 2 days. No more PHP. PHP's gone. Bullet in the head. It's out of here. You no longer have to install it. And the big deal for that is that for the SDK experience, PHP and pair were probably the biggest problem that everybody ran into. Who's had to set PHP-RC? I hate it. Right? It's stupid. It's gone. If you want to start management as part of 2.5, there's one executable you run. You don't have to start anything else. It starts the UI and it starts all the necessary components to communicate with the database. And finally, the big reason why we did this, why we built a new Java web application, was extensibility. We needed a plugin architecture in the management. We needed a way for you to extend our management. We needed a way so that if you want to go integrate and build a plugin to a back-end system, you can add that connection inside management so that somebody can provision it. You can't do that today. You've got to go build your own web interface, completely separate from the Unified Application Environment's interface. So as part of 2.5, we've got the foundation for adding extensibility to our UI, and you're going to see that show up, likely in a maintenance release on top of 2.5 before the end of the year. Right? So approximately 3-4 months after 2.5 ships in its first version. And finally, we've got expanded plugin support. We've added new APIs for other Cisco products. And importantly, this is going to be a continuous process. You're not just going to see this come out in big bang releases, new interfaces. The architecture that we've built for 2.5 and the technology we've added allows us to add plugins essentially continuously. It doesn't have to run on the box anymore. We can give you a completely separate install, and you can put it anywhere you want and add a plugin to the system. It's completely disaggregated from the core. The core is not versioned with the plugins necessarily. So that means we can release these plugins as soon as we have them. In fact, we're going to have many small releases of plugins. Think about all the plugins you want. Think about all the plugins that you want to build, and think of all the plugins you want us to build. And as part of the next 2 days, I really want to hear from you guys about that. So grab me, grab David, grab somebody, and tell us about the plugins you want. Tell us what you want to do with the platform and what Cisco products you want to access in the platform. We're listening to that stuff. We're prioritizing the list as we speak. The first one you're going to see is a messaging plugin. One API to access Unity and Unity Connection. You're going to be able to access list messages, read messages, download messages, get new message notification. One API, Unity and Unity Connection. The next one you're going to see is a collaboration API. One API, WebEx Meeting Place. One API. Same stuff, schedule meetings, attend meetings, blah, 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 blah. You name it. Right? There's no reason we can't do this, and there's absolutely no reason it shouldn't happen. The messaging plugin will be available with 2.5, concurrent with the 2.5 release. The collaboration plugin will follow after that, and then we'll start releasing plugins as we go forward. And best of all, in my opinion, we did all of this without changing anything about the core architecture. There's still 100% backwards API compatibility. 100%. The only thing you're going to have to do is rebuild your application one time, and James is going to talk about that a little bit more and how we're never going to have to do that ever again. The API hasn't changed one bit. If you've got a designer application, deploy it, it works. If you've got an existing provider, rebuild it, redeploy it, it works. Right? You should not have to change just because we did. If this doesn't work, if you find a bug and your application doesn't work, that's a bug and we will fix it. Okay? All right. Enough jibber jabber. Let's do some code. So, I'm going to build two things for you. The first thing I'm going to build is kind of the standard demo. We've got a standard demo that we like to build, which is basically HTTP make call. HTTP event, make a phone call, play a prompt. Right? And we've been building this demo since day one. I think that was probably the first thing we ever built. Right? And it's neat because it demonstrates web and communications. Right? Make call, HTTP event, make a phone call, phone rings, woo, you know. And then the second thing I'm going to build is a bit more interesting, a bit more roundabout. So, let me close out of this. Now, word of warning. The build you're about to see was built last night at 11 p.m. Right? This is fresh stuff. It's perfect. So let's build HTTP make call. This is basically hello world for unified communications, right? I mean, that's basically what it is. I'm going to build this with C#. The first demo I'm going to build with C#, and then we'll go from there. So you're going to see a lot of stuff in what I'm about to do, and I'm not going to explain it to you. Okay? I'm going to explain the most important bits, but you're going to get your fill of explaining over the next 2 days, right? Seth and JD and Zephyr are going to give you guys a gory, detailed look at this stuff, right? So you're going to see me type a lot of stuff, and that's okay. It's going to all get explained in the end. But we've got a new command line tool here. And the command line tool, you're going to hear about. It's not like we're in love with command line tools, even though I am a VI user at heart. It's a basis and it's a foundation for us for IDE plugins. So everything you see me do in this command line tool, there's going to eventually be an IDE plugin for you to do the exact same things. You're going to hear a lot about this thing called etch, which is the file that I just edited, and how it is basically, for 2.5, the enabling technology to make all this fun stuff happen. Oops. You guys all seen this before in the designer. So we've basically done what? We've handled an HTTP request. I always forget this step. We handle an HTTP request, and we make a phone call and we play a prompt. I can do that. We're done. Let's build it. I hate the response phrase. Why do we make you tell us a response phrase? That's so goofy. All right, app is built. App is installed. Theoretically, told you it wouldn't work. Why didn't it work? Why didn't it work? I haven't started it yet. Even I forget that the thing doesn't deploy to the app server anymore. You gotta like run something and stuff.
This is really neat stuff.
Simple stuff. I just write code. Right? It couldn't be simpler than that, guys. What just happened? As you can see, a lot of stuff. So what just happened? I don't know how long that took. I wasn't timing. Felt like 3 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever. I used Visual Studio. I wrote about 5 lines of code, handled an HTTP request, I made a phone call, and I played a prompt. Kind of like hello world, right? So this is what we got. There's a demo application, my PC that is down here in the box. I've got a demo application that I built with C#. I have my phone next to me there. We've got an application server running inside the lab across the way. I sent an HTTP request, hit the HTTP provider, same HTTP provider that you use when you're using the Visual Designer. That's routed internally. There's this cool new component called the Edge Bridge. You're going to hear a lot about that later on. Sent the GOT request of an event over the network to my application running on my PC. Turned around, made a phone call. Again, back through that Edge Bridge thing. Hit Unified Communications Manager, made my phone ring. And then we said play. Same deal, except this time it went out through the media engine, and we ended up with RTP flowing to the phone. This is easy stuff. Couldn't be easier than that. What can you do with that? I mean, you guys are smart. You're all developers. That one building block can be used to do all kinds of stuff, right? And how easy was it for me to do that? So that was the easy demo. That was the boring demo. I don't know. I told you guys a little bit about you have complete independence and that we come to you. We come to you. You can do anything you want. You can use any language you want. You can use any IDE you want. So what I wanted to do, and when I told JD and Seth and James about this when we were thinking up this goofy conference, when I told them that, they kind of freaked out. Because we basically took the platform and pushed it really hard to do this demo, to prove this point. Because I really want to prove this point that you have complete flexibility. And what I'm going to build, I've got a web application. This web application is already running. It's pre-built. It's built in Python using the Django web application framework. Django is an open source dealio, kind of like Ruby on Rails, but for Python. That thing is going to run inside Jython. And Jython is going to use Java to talk across the network to the application server to make phone call from a web page and put real-time device status onto that web page using Web 2.0, quote unquote. And I'm going to this is a real Web 2.0 application, guys. And I've got the stripes to prove it. So let me show you the web app as it exists right now. So this is Texas. And there's a company here in Texas called Billy Bob's Barbecue. And Billy Bob, apart from having some sweet barbecue, also happens to be a master unified communications reseller. So you can see, you can buy some beef and pork, some turkey. Well, that is unfortunate. Some beef, some pork, some turkey. You can also buy from him some unified communications, as interesting as it may sound. So get some food and get some phones at the same time. Now, we've had a Web 2.0 developer working on this for a while. He's also an XML programmer, if anybody else knows how to program in XML. And Billy Bob wanted to, on this web page, since he also has this really hardcore unified communications deployment, he wanted to give his customers a way for them to call. But he also, Billy, he basically just makes barbecue. He only has one dude there to answer the phone. So he also wanted to put the device status and let the person viewing the web page know whether the guy's really there and whether he can answer the phone or not. Okay? So I've done most of the hard Web 2.0 stuff already. So if I click this button, you can see it's going to do a little JavaScripting and stuff. And what I want to do is I want to hook up the back end. Okay? So if we kind of look at what we got here, this is my Python app. You can see the class files there because, like I said, it's running inside Jython. And oh, by the way, it's only running inside Jython now because we haven't finished the Python binding. Once we have the Python binding, you don't need Jython, even though it's kind of cool that you can integrate Python and Java at the same time. So let's just go here. And I'm going to basically do the same thing I just did, except I'm going to create a thing called CUAE app. Now the CUAE tool, I'm just going to point out real quick. My laser pointer's dying. There it is. That CUAE tool, there's a ghost on my computer, by the way. That's because Daniel's back there is running Camtasia. So if you see some weird stuff happening, it's because he's clicking. CUAE tool is a command line tool, like I said, and I just created another app, except this time I created a Java app. Right? So I've got an ant build file. I'm ready to go. One thing I want to do is I need to edit this etch file, this thing that basically, for all intents and purposes, describes what you want to use in the system. I want to use media control. I want to use call control. And I want to use JTAPI. I'm also going to add this properties file here real quick. And this is just used by the system to log in so you don't have to type your password a bunch of times. So we've built our etch file. The other thing I want to do, since I'm using JTAPI, I'm going to use triggering JTAPI. I want to edit. Oops. I want to edit this thing called project.yaml. YAML is a very cool Web 2.0 technology, right? Now YAML stands for yet another markup language, and it's just a way for you to declaratively do some of the things that you could do from the designer. I haven't written any code yet. I'm basically just hooking some stuff up, but I'm not going to write code in Java, so I'm going to write it in Python. All right, we've got our app installed. Now this app, right, for this demo is basically my Java bridge into the system, right? Like I said, we don't have the native Python binding done yet, but we do have a way to get to it by looking at this Java bridge. So I want to point out a few things to you because I got to prove to you guys we're really cooking here. Here's my web page. I've got I got a bit of JavaScript up here doing some Ajax stuff and doing that show hide fancy thing. And then I got down here essentially my call us div where I'm going to do the replacement and do the status updates. No big deal. Oops, we don't want to edit that file. So in Django, you have these things called views. You have them in, Rails too. It's basically model view controller architecture, just like everything else. Let's use the CUAE from Python. Let's do it. So I'm going to import that stuff I just built, right? I just created a template project and I built it. It gave me a jar file. I'm going to import classes from that jar. And I'm going to define a couple of classes up here that are basically the few push-ups that you've got to do to use this thing. We've tried really hard to make the number of push-ups you got to do to use our stuff as small as possible. And it's unlikely, as good as I am, that this is going to work on the first go. But that's okay. So we've basically built two classes here. Let's implement a method that is going to update my status. So it's going to be an event, two events from JTAPI to update my status. Oops. And when this JTAPI call initiated comes in, basically there's a new call on your phone. I'm going to set this global variable onCall to true. And then when JTAPI hang up 6 comes in, pay no attention to the 6. when JTAPI hang-up 6 comes in, I'm going to set on-call to false. Like I said, last night the 6 was required, but it's no big deal. It'll go away. So I've got a factoring, I have an implementation. I've just implemented 2 methods, call initiated and hang up, that are going to be triggered when I pick up the phone and hang up the phone. Look at that. Somebody is paying attention. Where? Oh, somebody knows Python. Nice. Thank you. All right. So down here, I've got 3 views. I've got an index view, a call status view, and a new call method. The new call method is going to get invoked when I hit go, when I make a phone call, right? The index is going to get invoked when I refresh the page, and the status is going to be my AJAX method. This is the thing that's getting invoked periodically. So let's implement the index real quick. And basically what I'm going to do is, if somebody hits the index and we haven't yet made our connection to the Unified Application Environment, let's go ahead and make that connection. Now, all this code that I'm using is actually all generated for you. And in fact, you wouldn't have to do any of this stuff if you were using Java or C#. When I built my C# version of this application, I didn't do any of this plumbing. Right? This is all generated for you. Because I'm doing it in Python, I basically need to replumb. So we're going to make a connection to the CUAE. We're going to, the start and wait up method is a method that basically initiates the network session. Scott will talk to the underscores, and while we've got underscores later on, there is a method to the madness. I'm going to register my application. You saw me do this from C#. Default, we have this thing called partitions. Default is a partition. Okay. Index is implemented. Let's do make call first. So I click the button, make a phone call. I've already, you see that line there, number? This is bad. Number is pulling out a post form variable. So if I've got a service, service.makeCall. I'm going to pass in my SID. SID is session ID. I'm going to call, all right, who's got a mobile phone? What's your number? What, 330 564 7531. Daniel, does long distance work? Who's got an Austin number? 512 917 4606. All right. Please, sir, check and make sure you have a signal. We make our phone call. Let's play a prompt. If you can go on speakerphone, that would be even better. I always forget the make call options. All right, we're done making our phone call. It can't be simpler than that, guys. 2 methods: make, call, play. And finally, let's hook in some device status. When I pick up my phone, I want the on-hook status to change. I want a message to change on the web page when I hang it up, vice versa. So, in fact, I don't have to hook anything up. It's already going to work. And the reason why it's going to work is because my 2 events up there are doing the hard work, right? Those 2 events are being called JTAPI call initiated and JTAPI hang up. And they're setting this global variable that I'm essentially sending back in my render right here. Okay? So, is it going to work? I don't know. Let's find out. We've already deployed the application. Remember, we deployed it a couple of steps ago when I did the CUAE create, blah, CUAE package, CUAE install. So all the metadata is already provisioned on the Unified Application Server. If we jump over to Billy and refresh this page, now I'm going to pretend here that this IP communicator is Billy's phone, right? And so theoretically, the theory goes when I go off hook, that should change. And when I go on hook, it changes back. When I go off hook, it changes back. This is Web 2.0, so it takes a little long for it to refresh. So, hey, Billy, it ain't talking, as we say in Texas. Let's give him a call. I have flubbed one thing, but that's okay. I should allow the input from the phone number and everything, but I'm going to hit go here, and it's going to call you. Ready? All right, Seth, cue the music. There you go. Let's change it real quick, and let's make it so you can input the phone number. There we go. So I'm pulling the number out. I may as well use it, right? Let me punch this in. Just like that. This number is 378-9200. Quit trying to mess me up.
Which phone are you trying to?
I'm not trying to do anything. Shh.
Hi, this is Billy. What do y'all want?
Can't be easier than that, guys. That's simple stuff. Anybody can do it. So, that's it. Web 2.0, unified communications, all in one, in under 20 minutes, I think. We just built this thing. That's it. So, you're going to hear a lot about this stuff and about what I just did. But bear in mind, that was all real. The only thing I did was write some AJAX stuff beforehand so I don't have to type it all in front of you. Right? That was all real. Real servers, real PSTN, real everything. Running an alpha build of 2.5. And I really hope that that proves to you and really pounds into you that you have complete freedom. You have complete flexibility. You can do anything you want with 2.5. You're no longer bounded by our tools, our tool chain, or the language we impose on you. So I've got about 5 minutes left. Any questions? I do have swag, by the way, somewhere around here to elicit questions from developers. I know you guys don't typically like to speak up.
What's the time frame for Python?
Time frame on Python and Ruby, 6-9 months probably. The native Python and Ruby.
Will they be part of the first customer shipment in September?
The Python and the Ruby? Probably not. We're hoping for Python. So Python is actually probably 70% done. C is probably 80% done. But so the cool thing about this is the technology that enables these languages is an enabler for the product. But it's actually going to ship separate, and you're going to hear more about that later on. And once it shows up in there, you'll be able to use it in our stuff. Right?
If I was going to just be using Java Eclipse, doing it that way, would I need to have Visual Studio on the
Nope.
box?
You don't need Visual Studio. You don't even need Windows.
Yes.
Your application can do anything it wants. It can run anywhere you want. We have not yet validated the toolchain on Linux, but we will. Any other questions?
How about the app server? Is it still going to be running on Windows? Or?
The app server will still be running on Windows for now. Long-term direction is to port it to Linux as well, but that is probably 12 to 18 months away. But your application does not have to run on Windows if you use the new technology to build it.
So in your first demo, you're running that demo application on your demo machine.
Yeah.
Could you also run that application on the server?
Sure. It's up to you to install it. It's up to you to get it up there. Right? It's not going to be transported up there when you do CUAE install. Your executable, your code does not move to the server. But if you wanted to distribute an install shield installer, James is going to talk tomorrow. One of the things we are going to do with 2.5 is firm up some of the guidelines, things that we say you can do and things that we say you can't do on the platform, on our OS. We'll firm those up, and there will absolutely be a way for you to co-locate your executable on our server and our OS. You
So-
still have to have partitions.
Excuse me, Louis.
I said something I wasn't supposed to because James is jumping in.
I'm sorry. So we've got we're recording this session as well. So I know we asked a couple questions already, but if you've got
Oh,
a
yes.
question, I've got a mic so that we can actually get the audio pickup. Are you hearing Mike? Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Dragos, you get to be the first person to use the mic. Congratulations.
So, thank you. How about the partitioning?
You still need to use partitions, and the reason why is, remember, we didn't change core architecture, right? Now, you'll notice, for the astute viewer in the audience, when I did my Python application, when I built that web app, what didn't I do? Anybody? Anybody who answers this gets a prize. You can't answer it, Scott. I started it. I started it from Python. But there's one thing I didn't do that everybody knows real well.
You didn't put any parameters on it?
No, I did that. Going once.
You didn't have to upload it to the.
I didn't upload it. That's right, but I already said that. That doesn't count. You get a consolation prize later. I didn't trigger it. Nowhere in there did I trigger that application. All I did was load my Python view. It connected to the application server. And then when I clicked go or when I changed my phone status, things just happened. I didn't have to trigger anything. Anonymous scripts, they no longer have to be triggered, right? So you still have to have partitions for now, but you no longer actually have to trigger your application when you're using the new technology. David, hang on a second. Hang on. Wait.
Any changes or enhancements to the graphical designer?
There are some. Obviously, the bulk of our effort has been on the language independent stuff, but there is, apart from bug fixes, there's a new code editor. So the C#, the embedded C# code editor that basically used to be just a text box, has been enhanced. It's got syntax highlighting and some other things. So there are kind of focused tactical improvements, but no major improvements.
Does it have the IntelliSense also with it, the code editor?
Does it have IntelliSense? Yes, it does.
Nice.
Coded by Rick Bolke.
Nice. So like if I have 2.4 already, can I just install it over it, or I have to do all sorts of uninstalling and installation on that?
The upgrade process, you mean? The upgrade process will be like any other. On SDK, it might be a bit more complicated than on production, but basically you just run the new installers. The most complicated thing on the SDK upgrade is going to be upgrading the platform requirements that we don't distribute an installer for the SDK, right? But as far as upgrading the designer, you just run the new installer, you'll get the new designer.
All right.
Can you pass the mic to my phone helper over there? Thank you.
Sorry, what does anonymous scripts mean? Because didn't you put a username password in the dot properties?
So anonymous scripts means they're not triggered, right? In the old world, in 2.4, before an app could do anything, before it could make a phone call, before it could do anything, you had to have an event come in to start it, right? And in my app, I didn't do that. I didn't have any events come in except for my JTAPI events, but they didn't start my script. It was already started. Once I can register, and then I can start using the APIs immediately without any external stimulus to start the script. That's basically what it means.